When we work with learning objective to understand specific information, we give our students, for example, the dialogue between Bob and Kate, and then I can ask some questions about names of people in this dialogue, about places they were and they visited or they plan to visit, about profession of these people, about some objects, and about some number and quantity. Eh, so, I mean, name, place, profession, object, number, and quality is or are specific information in the are specific information from audio material. When when you listen for specific information, you need to have some idea of what you are listening for before you listen and while you are listening. So when we are if you are going to give your students task for listening, you have to organize pre-listening task, and your students have to know the main idea of the audio material they're going to listen. You see, we have to make a kind of bridge, and support our students and mm, give them opportunity to be ready to listen to audio material where something is going to be talked. Да? Нақты не жайында әңгіме болмақ екендігі туралы кішкене болса да біз тапсырма алдындағы тапсырмада балаларға бір бағыт бағдар беріп жіберуіміз керек. So, and we have learning objectives like understand the details from the talk. Yeah. So, listening for details. What is it? Students listen for groups of words and phrases at sentence level. It is the intensive listening for scanning. And this is when we listen very closely, paying attention to all the words, not just names, places, people, profession, but to all the words and trying to understand as much information as possible. So listening for details is a little bit more difficult than listening for specific information. And we have listening for gist or global understanding. It is extensive. We have two kinds of listening, intensive and extensive. Yeah. So when we listen to a general idea about a topic, that is listening for gist. Yeah. So this is sub skills. These are sub skills of listening. And as you know, when we teach listening, we have to know that teachers have to organize pre-listening activities, while listening activities, and post-listening activities in order to help our students um, to help our students to cope with listening task. What kind of pre-listening activities do we have and why should we use them? Motivating students by making the topic relevant and interesting. Next, activating existing knowledge for new knowledge to be built upon. So they are going to listen for something new, and we have to activate the existing knowledge. Introducing key vocabulary and key structures that students need in order to understand the text. There might be some new constructions, some new lexical forms, some new vocabulary, for example. Yeah, that's why before giving listening task, we have to work on them. For example, you can use activity like predicting. Yeah, you can ask questions. What are these people doing? And show picture. if this picture concerns our listening material, or what are they saying to each other. So we encourage our students to predict what they're going to listen to. Then um, setting the scheme, introduce uh, introduce people, places, activating scheme data. So it is helpful and effective to introduce people or places or objects or some things from listening material to our students before you give them task to listen. And sometimes gist listening is also very helpful, and listening for specific information is also can be used as pre-listening activity. And while listening activity, when we organize while listening activities, we can use no response activity or tick boxes. Yeah, tick boxes. For you see its sample on the screen. Yeah, it is a tick box sample. You will write some data on the table, and you should give your students these tables, and they will work with this table and put some ticks and crosses while they will listen to the audio material. Then sequencing and acting. Sometimes you can use drawing or gap filling exercises, and taking notes is also very helpful. And it helps our students to listen to it helps our students to understand the context or content of audio material. And we have some post-listening activities. Usually we use multiple choice questions. You give your students one question and there are answers A, B, C or A, B, C, D answers. Or sometimes it can be open-ended questions, just a open-ended question, and your students have to answer in full sentences, yeah, or note taking and gap filling, dictogloss. It is also an interesting activity. Role playings are also very useful. If you combine if you combine learning objective for listening and learning objective for speaking, you can after the task you can use role play. You can ask your students to role play a piece of play, yeah, for example, or a piece of dialogue, and you will have an opportunity to check your students' two abilities, listening ability and speaking ability. Because when they will role play, they have to speak. They have to speak. You can use debates. For example, you gave some information your students to listen. I mean, you gave them audio material, and then you can ask your students a question. Question should be open-ended. It should be a great question because it will make your students to debate or discuss and give their own opinion, agree, disagree, etc. So the question should be very clever, should be well organized. And there are some references. I use materials from these resources. And now I want you to give me some feedback. what you understand from my webinar, and what was the main points, or what was useful for you, maybe what was interesting for you. I tried to give you short information, brief information, that is most important things. I could do it longer, but I think these points are most important things, and that is enough for the first time. Maybe next time we will go deeper, and we will look through what is it extensive listening, what is it intensive listening, types of listening, yeah? And other things. But for today, that is all. That is all. And will you give me any reflection? Maybe you can speak about